Hey guys, welcome to Through the Bible Verse by Verse, a plain and simple study through the entire Bible, book by book, chapter by chapter, and verse by verse. We're in Numbers chapter 17, and it's been 38 years, so a lot of the, like chapter 17, 18, and 19, which I'm going to try to get to today, are just kind of reiterating some of these, the commands that were given. But keep this in mind, 38 years prior. That's why it's not that they're... One of the things about the Bible, let me say, one of the things about the Bible that we always should remember is that the Bible is a collection of books. So 66 books we have. And each 66 books cover a span of period that were written in different period of time. And so because we oftentimes, when we read, we read the Bible here, right? When we read the Bible, we look at it as one kind of solid book, but in reality, it is a collection of books written over centuries, right? Some say about 1,500-year period of time, but 40 different authors, different books. And that's important to understand. So what I'm saying is that sometimes when we read it, we see it in the sense of one kind of time period or one essence, but it's not. So that's why it seems like Moses is sort of repeating himself, but he's not. It's a whole different kind of again, 38 years have passed, and so he's kind of actually God is getting ready as the first generation is getting ready to die off. God is actually preparing, right? Kind of reintroducing. Remember, the oldest person is in their late 50s at this time. They were 20 years old at the time, so those 20 years old or younger are going to be the ones who go into the promised land. So a lot of the people and that's really who he's talking about. He's not even talking to Aaron. Aaron shortly is going to die, okay, as we move on. I think Aaron dies in the 40th year. And Miriam is going to, I think, die from this perspective later this year. So again, all right, so let's go on. I'm just going to read, like I said, I'm going to try to get through 17, 18, and 19 today. We'll see. It says, the Lord instructed Moses, speak to the Israelites. This is number 17. Speak to the Israelites and take one staff from them from each ancestral house. 12 staffs from all the leaders of the ancestral house. Write each man's name on his staff. Write Aaron's name on the Levite staffs, because there must be one staff for the head of each ancestral house, or the tribes. Okay. Then place, verse 4, then place them in the tent of the meeting in front of the testimony where I meet with you. The staff of the man I choose will sprout, and I will rid myself of the Israelites' complaints that they have been making about you. So these staffs, by the way, were made of wood. He said they're going to actually sprout, and then they would hold these staffs throughout all generations as signs. Verse 6. So Moses spoke to the Israelites, and each of their leaders gave them a staff, one for each of the leaders of the ancestral house, 12 staffs in all. Aaron's staff was among them. Moses placed the staff before the Lord in the tent of the meeting. The next day, Moses entered the tent of the testimony and saw that Aaron's staff represented the house of Levi, had sprouted, formed buds, blossomed, and produced almonds. Now this is kind of amazing, since, remember, these staffs were cut off. They were cut. They weren't a part of a tree. They actually cut. So for these to sprout almonds was sort of the miracle, of this, besides showing that Aaron was the one that God had chosen, his tribe, his sons. Verse 9, Moses then brought out all the staffs from the Lord's presence to all the Israelites, and they saw them, and each man took his own staff. Now also, this was sort of kind of again, a remedy for the complaints about Korah. Remember, Korah and them were priests. And then Korah and them was like, we should be able to, we're just as holy as everyone else. And what Korah meant, in the sense, well, we were Levites. Okay, we're just as holy as Moses because we're Levites. It was very perverted since God was the one who separated them. Anyway, verse 10. The Lord told Moses, put Aaron's staff back in front of the testimony to be kept as a sign for the rebels, so that you may put an end to their complaints before me. It won't, he said, or else they would die. So Moses did as the Lord commanded him. The Israelites declared to Moses, look, we are perishing, we are lost, we are all lost. Anyone who comes near the Lord's tabernacle will die, we will perish. Now, that's true, don't go near, because if you're not part of the Levites, you shouldn't be going anyway. All right, what the heck? My screen is freezing up here. All right, what's going on? All right, y'all. Okay, let me go here. My screen is freezing up here. Hold on 1 second here. Let me come out of this because my computer screen is freezing up. All right, let's see if I can unfreeze. All right, here we go. Numbers 18. Numbers 18 says, the Lord said to Aaron, you, your sons, and your ancestral house will be responsible for sin against the sanctuary. You, your sons, will be responsible for the sin involving the priesthood, but also bring your relatives with you from the tribe of Levi, your ancestral tribe, so they may join you and assist you and your sons in front of the tent of testimonies. They are to perform the duties for you and for the whole tent. They must not come near the sanctuary equipment or altar, otherwise both they and you will die. They are to join you and guard the tent of meetings, doing all the work of the tent, but no unauthorized person may come near you. So only the priests, remember, you had the Levites who took care of the ministers or ministry. Okay, they were ministers and servants. The word minister means servant. So they were the servants of the tabernacle and then the priesthood. But only Aaron and them had the high priesthood who can actually go into the tent of meetings and make the atonement sacrifice. Verse 5, you are to guard the sanctuary and the altar so that wrath may not fall on the Israelites again. Look, I have selected your fellow Levites and from the Israelites as a gift for you, assigned by the Lord to work at the tent of the meeting. So this is where we get even the term ministry gifts. But the priests, the Levites were gifts to what? Serve as priests. He says, verse 7, but you and your sons will carry out the priestly responsibilities for everything concerning the altar and what is inside the veil, and you will do that work. I am giving you the work of the priesthood as a gift, but an unauthorized person who comes near the sanctuary will be put to death. God is the one who's giving the tribe of Levites as gifts, you can say ministry gifts, to minister in the sanctuary, the priesthood. Verse 8, then the Lord spoke to Aaron, look, I have put you in charge of the contributions brought to me. As for all of the holy offerings of the Israelites, I have given them to you and your sons as a portion and a permanent statute. A portion of the holiest offerings kept from the fire will be yours. Every one of your offerings that they give me, whether grain offerings, sin offerings, restitution offerings, will be most holy for you and your sons. You are to eat it as a most holy offering. Every male may eat it. It is holy to you. Now, Paul would later say that those who serve at the altar will also partake of the altar. This is what he's referring to. So since the priest had no other inheritance, okay? The priest had no other inheritance that they were to, in other words, they didn't go out and build lands, farms, things like that. Their lot in life was the ministry. So the people were to give and support them And then the priests then had their kind of lot in life, what it was to partake of whatever the offerings were, grain offerings, even money, even lands. There were certain lands given to them. In other words, what God is setting aside here is the priests were to be taken care of by the priests, by the people, and then the priests, and only the priests, had access to partake of these gifts and these offerings. Verse 11, the contributions of their gifts also belong to you. I have given all of the Israelites presentations offerings to you, and to your sons and daughters as a permanent statute. Every ceremonial person in your house may eat it. Now, even today we have, this is why we even have today religious land, especially Christianity, tax exempt, things like that. This is sort of the reason why it is like this. But mainly, the worship of God was to be cared for by the people. Okay. Even if you look at the Catholic priesthood, it's sort of mirrored off of this, that the priests live by the church. They don't own land and properties and all that kind of stuff. They are products of the church. So the same thing. The priests are the products of the priests are the products of the priesthood. So everything that is given to them belongs to the priest. They can eat of it, live off of it, etc. Verse 12, I'm giving you all the best of the fresh olive oil, new wine, grains, which the Israelites give to the Lord as the first fruits. That's their first fruits. The first fruits of all of their land, which they bring to the Lord, belong to you. Every clean person in your house may eat of it. Everything in Israel that is permanently dedicated to the Lord belongs to you. The firstborn of every living thing, man or animal, presented to the Lord belongs to you. But you must certainly redeem the firstborn of man and redeem the firstborn of unclean animals. You will pay the redemption price for a month-old male according to the assessment, 5 shekels of silver by the standard sanctuary shekel, which is 20 whatever this is, gerads. However, you must not redeem the firstborn of an ox or a sheep or a goat. They are holy, and you are to sprinkle their blood on the altar and burn their fat as the fire offering for the pleasing aroma to the Lord. But their meat belongs to you. It belongs to you like the breast of the presentation offering and the right thigh. I will give it to you and to your sons and your daughters, all the holy contributions that the Israelites present to the Lord as a permanent statute. It is a permanent covenant of salt before the Lord for you as well as your offering. The Lord told Aaron, you will not have, now this is important too, and this is why he's doing this, you will not have an inheritance in their land. There will be no portion among them for you, and I am your portion and your inheritance among the Israelites. Look, I have given the Levites every 10th in Israel as inheritance in return for the work they do. Now the 10th is the tithe. We would call the tithe today, or known as the tithe. The work of the 10th of the meeting. Verse 22. The Israelites must never again come near the 10th meeting, or they incur guilt and die. The Levites will do the work of the tent of the meeting, and they will bear the consequences of their sin. The Levites will not receive an inheritance among the Israelites. This is the permanent inheritance among the Israelites. This is the permanent statute throughout your generations. 5. Given them the 10th that the Israelites present to the Lord as a contribution for their inheritance. That is why I told them that they would not receive an inheritance among the Israelites. They are instructed, the Lord instructed Moses, speak to the Levites. Now, let me say this, that, I'm going to say here, again, by separating them, of course, he is telling them again, so their inheritance comes from the Lord in that from the offerings of the people. They're not going to be given land or anything like that. They're not going to be given land. They're not going to be given, um, um, uh, you know, we will see when the land is divided up. But there will be land within those lands consecrated for the priest. Verse 23, the Levites will do the work of the tent of the meeting, and they will bear the consequences of their sin. The Levites will not receive an inheritance among the Israelites. This is the permanent statute throughout the generations, for I have given them the tenth that the Israelites present to the Lord as the contribution for their inheritance. That is why I told them that they would not receive an inheritance of the Israelites. And Moses instructed, the Lord instructed Moses, speak to the Levites and tell them, when you receive from the Israelites the tenth that I have given you as an inheritance, you must present a part of it as an offering to the Lord, and a tenth of the tenth. Your offerings will be credited to you, as it were, your grain from the threshing floor and the full harvest from the wine press. You are to present the offering to the Lord every tenth you receive from the Israelites. Give some of it to Aaron and the priest as an offering to the Lord. You must present the entire offering to the Lord from your gifts. The best part of the tenth is to be concentrated. Tell them further, once you have presented the best of the tenth as a credit to you, your Levites, and produce of the threshing floor and the wine plants, then you are to you and your household may eat it anywhere. It is your wage in return for your work at the tent of the meeting. You will not incur guilt because of it once you have presented the best part of it. You must not defile Israelites' holy offering so that you will not die. I was going to try to squeeze in chapter 18. Let me see here. Stop. All right, I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to go on to chapter 19, which is going to take me a little over my normal time here, and I'm just going to kind of read through this quickly. Chapter 19 is that the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron. This is the legal statute that the Lord has commanded. Instruct the Israelites to bring you an unblemished red cow that has no defect and has never been yoked. In other words, the yoke was a bar that connected him with another cow, and then they were to work together. In other words, the yoke was a device that coupled two to make them work as one. Verse 3. Give it to Eleazar the priest, and he will have it brought outside the camp and slaughter it in his presence. Now, this is the sort of the annual red, what people call it red heifer or cow. Verse 4. Eleazar the priest is to take some of his blood with his finger and sprinkle it 7 times towards the front of the tent of the meeting. The cow must be burned in his sight. Its hide, flesh, and blood are to be burned along with its dung. The priest is to take cedar wood, hyssop, and crimson yarn and throw them unto the fire where the cow is burning. Then the priest must wash his clothes and bathe his body in water. After that he may enter the camp, but he will remain ceremonial unclean until evening. The one who burned the cow must also wash his clothes, bathe his body in water, and he will remain unclean until the evening. A man who is clean is to gather up the cow's ashes and deposit them outside the camp in a ceremonial clean place. The ashes must be kept by the Israelite community for preparing the water to remove impurities. It is a sin offering. Then the one who gathers up the cow's ashes must wash his clothes, and he will remain unclean until the evening. This is a permanent statute of Israelites, and for the foreigner who resides among them. The person who touches the human corpse will be unclean for 7 days. He is to purify himself with the water, and on the 3rd day and the 7th day, then he will be clean. But if he does not purify himself on the 3rd day and the 7th days, he will not be clean. Anyone who touches a body of a person who has died and does not purify himself, defiles the tabernacle of the Lord. That person will be cut off from Israel. He remains unclean because the waters for impurity has not been sprinkled on him, and his uncleanness is still on him. This is the law when a person dies in the tent. Everyone who enters the tent and everyone who was already in the tent will be unclean for 7 days. In other words, if you die around someone, and this is, by the way, this is not having to do with anything from a virus or contagion. This is more ceremonial from God's standpoint. Verse 15. And any open container without lid tied on it is unclean. In other words, a dead person would contaminate the entire atmosphere. Okay, the entire atmosphere. In other words, if you died, it'd be like this. If someone died in your house, right, everything in it was contaminated. Verse 16. Anyone in the open field who touches a person who has been killed by the sword or has died, or who has touches human bone or grave will be unclean for 7 days. For the purification of the unclean person, they are to take some of the ashes of the burnt sin offering and put them in a jar and add fresh water to them. A person who is clean is to take hyssop, dip it in the water, sprinkle the tent, all the furnishing, and all the people who were there. He is also to sprinkle the one who touched a bone, a grave, a corpse, or a person that has been killed. The one who is clean is to sprinkle the unclean person on the 3rd day and the 7th day after he purifies. After he purifies the unclean person on the 7th day, the one being purified must wash his clothes and bathe in water, and he will be clean by evening. But the person who is unclean and does not purify himself, that person will be cut off from the assembly because he has defiled the sanctuary of the Lord. The water for impurity has not been sprinkled on him. He is unclean. This is the permanent statute for them. The person who sprinkles the water for impurity is to wash his clothes, and whoever touches the water from the impurities will be clean until the evening. Anything the unclean, let's see here. Okay, let me go on. So then he says, this is the permanent statute of the person who sprinkles the water from impurity is to wash his clothes, and whoever touches the water from impurity will be unclean until evening. Anything the unclean person touches will be unclean. Let me read that again, verse 22. Anything the unclean person touches will become unclean, and anyone who touches it will be unclean until evening. Now, again, I rushed through that because some of that, again, if you wanted to read that, if you wanted to study those commandments, again, I'm not focusing on them because, one, we're Gentiles. They don't apply to us anyway. And then two, they've been over for centuries, right? 2,000 years since Jesus died, so they just don't apply to us. Okay. But again, the reason why these things are coming up again is because, remember, there's been a 38-year gap, and so God is sort of like just kind of reorientating them to these commands. All right, guys, chapter 20 in the next video. I will see you then.